Hey, what's up, guys? John here. I'm sitting here with Neville, and he is absolutely crushing it in the solopreneur space, copywriting. And I think we're moving into a really interesting place in society where businesses are going to go from having 10 employees down to having one. And I think it's going to be a great conversation. We'll learn a lot. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from it.
Thanks, man. Let's do it. Yeah.
Cool. So you run your whole business with just yourself, right?
It's just myself. I have I have like 7 employees, but everyone's kind of on contract basis. So like freelance. There's one full-time person who started off as an assistant and now kind of runs everything. And that's very helpful. So it's not 100% just me, but it is a very, very small, nimble operation. And on a day-to-day basis, I don't really have to talk to anyone. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so what is the business?
We basically sell, it's called copywriting course. So just use your imagination what that is. It's a course on selling copy. So basically I was always known for like writing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I was a part of a company called AppSumo. I was part of a company called The Hustle, helped kind of define the voice for those types of things, hired writers to replace myself. And then enough people were like, how do you write online like this? And why do I keep reading your stuff even though you're trying to sell me stuff? And I was like, well, it's this thing called copywriting. And I was like, okay, maybe I should put this in a course format. And so about 10 years ago, we did that. It was a big success then. And then since then, we've added like a community and all that stuff. So instead of just teaching people to do that, we actually help them with it. So now if you go there, upload your copy, myself and other writers will actually go and like punch it up. Oh, be like, you should change this, you should add some social proof, take this part out, this intro is boring, that kind of stuff. And then we do office hours, kind of typical like course creator stuff. Like there's a playbook for it and we run that well.
Oh, that's really, really cool. How many people, you said you have like 1,000 people?
There's usually about 1,000 people at any given time in it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So do people come in, they join, maybe they have a present offer, then they tweak it, they get everything fixed, and then when they have a new offer, they come back in, or they constantly refine it?
You know, that's a good question. It's really hard to answer. Like everyone's like, define your exact target audience. Like there are some people that are just like, I got something to work on. They join, they'll be on for like 1 to 3 months. They'll get what they need out of it and then stop. We make it really easy to pause the subscription. I think that's important. So they can just like one-click cancel and they come back whenever they want. Other people will buy for like a year and just have it for a year and just watch as others are improving their copy. And it's not just copy. It's like images, it's their landing pages, their whole like business operation, basically. We just optimize everything. So some people will just come to all the office hours, never participate, and just watch and listen in the background as people talk about their numbers, how this email is doing versus that email. It's very interesting stuff. When it's a private community, people are very open about their numbers and stuff.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, or when they're having like a down month or something like that, which you don't normally see like just published out in open because it's like a little embarrassing and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so you get to audit 1,000 plus businesses and learn about a lot of businesses that have a lot of opportunity. And
dude, I get ideas all the time. Yeah, when people because a lot of people have their own little small businesses going. I'm just like, I had no idea like that was a thing. Or like there's some artist in San Diego making a ton of money and you're just like, I never even thought about that. Or there was like a kid who started like, if you post all these short reels to TikTok or Instagram or whatever, it's hard to like back them up. Say I have an agency that posts them and there's just like tons of files everywhere. Yeah. He made a thing, you pay $10 and it just downloads everything in one big zip file. And that just like crushed it. It was like #1 on Product Hunt. And I was like, that's never even thought of that.
How much money is he making roughly?
I have no idea. He did really well. He started, there's one called Talk Backup. And then he added a whole other suite of tools and just started rapidly releasing them and seeing which ones worked and which ones didn't. And he fucking crushed it on a couple of them. So how much he's making, I'm not really sure, but he did really well with these.
That's really, really cool. What other industries do you see that are kind of coming out of the woodworks right now that people can...
There's an obvious answer with like AI, but it's kind of weird. I don't know that I'm actually seeing too many people make money with just AI. I think AI is a tool, right? It's like make money with the internet. Okay, but like what are you going to do behind it? So a lot of people are like, I'm going to start an AI company. Now, a lot of those have been crushed because like ChatGPT or something comes out and it just does whatever your company did already for free.
Except way better, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that's going to happen again. There's like a new space where people are like, okay, ChatGPT doesn't do this yet, but then like GPT-5 is going to come out and probably do all that plus better. So I'm not sure that people are just making money with AI. However, I am seeing a lot of existing companies implement AI and make more money for that. So for example, like a big company like HubSpot can say, well, we have a CRM, it's really hard to use. What if you make a prompt that just says, people just type what they want to do and it does it. Yeah. That's where I'm seeing like a lot of the big stuff happen right now.
Today's video is sponsored by GreatCreditFast. Do you want to invest in real estate or possibly Airbnb? Maybe you want to start and grow a company or a business or possibly get debt free. With great credit, you're able to achieve all of this and much, much more. The last thing that you want to do is borrow money from a credit card company, paying 25 or 27% interest, because when you look at the real numbers and you look at what's actually happening in the economy, that's the worst strategy, and it's almost a guaranteed failure. Take a look at this. So if you're borrowing $10,000 at a 27% interest rate, paying $250 a month, it's going to take about 9 years to pay this off, and about $16,000 in wasted resources paid to one of these credit card companies. However, with Great Credit, you're able to do a balance transfer in most cases and get debt-free for 0% interest and pay this off in a fraction of the time. In 2008, banks started tightening up lending restrictions, and that's exactly what they are doing now. They're getting ready to tighten up lending restrictions, meaning that if you have that low credit score, 400, 500, 600 credit score, if you're in that even low 700s, it becomes much more challenging to get access to money. But if you look at Blackstone, for example, Blackstone, they are using their credit and their relationships to raise money. They've just raised $30 billion to invest in single-family rentals. If you want to invest in real estate, you want to really grow in scale during the greatest wealth transfer of all time, you're going to need Great Credit to do it. We would love to give you a free consultation to see how we can help you at GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com, or give us a call at 561-430-5900. Now back to the show.
Creators are another spot. Like you're a creator. I'm seeing I think there was like this big hype where everyone talks about being a creator is awesome, but I don't think everyone can do it. I think just by the nature of like crowds, like there's going to be a small percentage of people, and most people are consuming it, right? So I think you're seeing a lot of people quit that industry or modify what they're doing now. So people who are full-time YouTube, there's like this big trend of quitting. So that's something interesting. And then the other thing I'm just noticing is like there's a whole world of stuff that's offline. Like when I turn 50, I think I want to be completely offline. I want to be in offline businesses. Yeah. So that's kind of like local businesses, ththings like that, where your competition is just like the dudes who live around you, not the whole world. What we're doing, our competition is everyone in the world.
Right.
Everyone in the world, in every single country of every age, is your competition. If you run a local plumbing business, your competition is like within your geographic range,
right,
which is good and bad. But I do think there's like a whole world of industry that's like not on the internet, and people need to remember that.
You think we're in a creator bubble right now?
Short term, maybe, but I think long term, I don't think so. I think there's going to be a lot of micro industries. Let me give you an example. You've heard of we're in Austin right now. There's a thing called South by Southwest. Big festival. It used to be known for its tech industry part. And the thing is, there was no other tech industry to be heard of. Like there's no conferences. So that was like the one big conference like 10,000 people or more would come to. Now, all those conferences are fragmented out into smaller, more specific things. So if you're into AI that deals with movie script writing, there's probably like a conference about that, or a group about that, or a little micro community online about that specific subject. So I think people are going to fragment out into little groups like that, and that's going to continue to grow. So I don't think there's a bubble or anything necessarily.
Yeah, Neil Patel came out and he was showing data about how much influencers make. And many people think a lot of influencers are making a lot of money. But in reality, it's a very small bit of influencers that are making most of the money. And he kind of goes about how the influencers and those that are actually creating content, the ones that are making the most money, are only talking about their offer and only talking about what they actually offer, versus it's kind of like the entertainer versus the educator. The entertainer is there, might get millions and millions of views, but the educator might only get 1,000, 2,000 views, but the educator's making 5x.
I feel like I learned this lesson a long time ago with SEO back in the day. You get a lot of SEO traffic, and you're like, hey, 40,000 people a month are seeing this article. This is amazing. Then you look at the conversion rates, and you're like, wait a second. People are just looking up a term, finding this page, clicking on it, and leaving. That's actually not that valuable. So I think having like 100,000 views on an Instagram post, I'm sure you get that all the time. Sometimes that means nothing. That just means 100,000 people saw this one thing real quick and flicked to another thing. Nothing happened. So I think people are starting to see the cracks in the creator industry, that like just because someone's getting 100,000 or 1 million per post doesn't mean they could get people to take action. I have a buddy, Sam Parr, who lives here in town. And I think if he posts a tweet, he could actually probably get like 1,000 people to show up at a location. I think that's power. Whereas there's other people that have been on Twitter for a while that kind of like game the algo a little bit. And they can get a lot of likes for like something to be like, Walt Disney did this back in 1929. And that'll get a lot of likes. It doesn't mean that people are paying attention for them.
Correct.
So I think there's going to be like a shift in like, you want people to follow you for you, not necessarily for you just like redistributing other people's stuff and getting a lot of views on it. So I think there's going to be a correction, like anything. It's like a housing bubble. Like housing prices usually don't tank, they just come back down to earth.
Correct.
So I think it'll be like that.
Yeah. When you mentioned SEO, a lot of people and I'm learning a lot about SEO right now. Where we're spending a fortune on it and learning as we're obviously growing. And it's interesting because in the beginning I thought that we basically just put out blogs, and then after 4 months. We got basically nothing. We had writers, and then we're like, okay, we need to bring in a specialist. We need to bring in a web developer. We need to bring in the right people. And then you're slowly seeing the traffic pick up on Ahrefs. Every day you're like, okay, cool, getting a little bit more. But I didn't realize how long of a long-term game that is.
But dude, I think there's been a tectonic shift. Exploded in SEO in 2019, 2020. ChatGPT, generative AI, absolutely changed the name of the game. 100%. A lot of the stuff that was working 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, just literally does not work at all anymore. And I also used to see SEO as the real moneymaker.
Yeah.
And social media was kind of a trick.
Yeah.
And now I think it's flipped. Now I think the social media, people coming for you and then you telling them what to do is probably the way to go rather than SEO. I still think there's a lot of value in SEO. We have to go for very few relevant keywords. So it used to be go after as many blog posts, as many articles as you can.
Yeah.
And now my strategy for 2004 is rank for 3 to 5 really, really good terms. That's it.
Interesting. So I own a credit repair company, and so they're putting out, so it's a monthly subscription, and we help people fix their credit.
Yeah.
And so we put out very similar, I don't know if you heard of Lexington Law or one of these other companies. They'll put out a lot of blogs, and so we've looked at a lot of keywords that people are searching, rewrite their articles, do it better. At least we attempt to do it better in our own way, and try to rank. We're seeing almost no traction on the SEO compared to if I do a YouTube video or if I do a reel. If I post one of those and I mention it, we'll get a bunch of people that will sign up on the calendar.
The easy trick is, right?
What?
So let's say you have you mentioned you have some good performing YouTube videos about credit repair.
Yeah.
So you turn that YouTube video into an article. It might have already been an article if you wrote a script for it. You make that a really, really good article and then link that from the YouTube video. And then also on the top of that article, you embed your YouTube video. So you get this virtual cycle. So if people search it on Google, they might find your YouTube video, subscribe to your YouTube channel. If people find it on YouTube, they might click on your article and 30, 40 people viewing it a day. And then YouTube's like, hey, this is every day it's getting traffic from somewhere. This is good. And they start pushing it.
Interesting. Because I Googled you before I came, and I'm like, it said the future, futur.com. And I'm like, oh, it might be his company. And so I looked up a company to I'll learn something, maybe have some other questions that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And I'm like, oh, it's actually not his company. Yeah. He was on a podcast and they embedded. I'm like, that's super smart. Yeah. Because they go out there, they have a bunch of people go on the pod and they embed it. People are like, oh, who is, you mentioned Sam. Who is Sam? And you search oh, okay, this company. And then before you know it, you're looking at the courses in which they sell.
Hijack their name a little bit.
Yeah.
We're actually doing that. So if you look, I posted a podcast with Jason Cohen, the guy who runs WP Engine and a couple of billion-dollar companies. And what I'm doing is I'm posting his main interview I did, all my notes, and then all the shorts we make out of it. So all our long form clips get turned into short form clips. And those just kind of go into the ether, just post them and I guess nothing happens. I was like, why don't we just put them in these posts? There's 10 clips with him.
Yeah.
And honestly, whenever I look at that blog post, I just click the clips. I'm not watching the full interview.
Yeah.
Or if I really like a lot of the clips, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to invest some time in this long form interview. So I think that's the way we're doing it, to where hopefully we almost hijack someone's name a little bit. That's not the plan. I don't think that brings us a ton of traffic, but I think it's also some, you never know. You found the Future podcast run by Chris Do. He's dope.
Right.
Yeah. Because you searched my name.
Right.
So he got a little bit of exposure here. Now we're talking about him.
Exactly.
The system works.
Yeah. Now a bunch of people will hear about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very ethical way to, cross-pollinate your brand with other people in which you respect and that are inside of your own niche.
Well, what's your opinion on the creator economy bubble? What do you think?
I think that we're in a really interesting place where I think creators that are supplying a lot of value will continue to supply value, and people right now are looking for answers to questions in certain industries. Look at Hormozy, look at a lot of people that are creating a lot of value for their audience. I think those specific creators are going to have a really, really bright future ahead, but I think creators that are doing some maybe prank videos or prank calling, I feel like those creators might have a harder time. But yeah, I think the creators that are supplying a lot of value are going to grow dramatically the next couple of years.
I think with the creator bubble, I think they're looking at people that are really famous on YouTube. And I think with creators, I actually don't think of it like that. Quick example. I used to live next door to this big convention center at a JW Marriott.
Yeah.
And every morning I'd walk into this Starbucks that they have there. And because I was just wanting to walk around and see stuff, they have a big convention center. And there's always 10 to 20 events going on at this place on a Tuesday, but they're small. So there's obviously the big CES in Las Vegas that everyone's talking about, but I would walk through the hallways and just look at what's going on. And there'd be the Central Minnesotan Insurance Agents Meetup. And there'd be like 40 people at this little conference. And you're like, huh, interesting. I never thought about that. There'd be like a potato farmer, equipment maker, manufacturer, lawyers convention. I'm just like, holy shit, every Tuesday you could just walk through and see all these areas that people are meeting and there's whole industries about. And I remember thinking, if you're the Central Idaho biggest potato distributor machinery guy talking about that stuff on YouTube, how many views are you going to get? 40? I don't know.
Quality views, though.
But the point is, someone's buying a $7 million contract for their potato farm for fertilizer for the year.
Right.
And so I've actually worked with a couple of these industries that do farming and stuff, and I was always just shocked at like the order value that they get for each of these things. And so I remember thinking, that's the kind of influencer I was talking about. This one guy who was a private client was a dairy farmer guy, and he sold trainings for dairy farmer employees. And trainings, like a lot of these people didn't speak English and stuff like that, just kind of like farmhands in the middle of the country. And you're just like, how do you get to train someone like that? So he created a program where you could train them. It's in several different languages. And he kills it in that industry because there's just not that much competition. No one would think of that. That is not something you would ever think of if you're just like browsing the internet or Twitter.
For sure.
And so I always think of when say creators that there's these like smaller creators with very, very high order value.
Oh yeah, no,
those
their
are
little
industries.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Those that have like would they say the riches are in the niches? Yeah. Like those that have that small audience that are extremely loyal to what they're producing. For sure. It's just like, like I mentioned, like with Hormozy or anyone else, if you have a specific audience that's looking to consume the content which you're providing, like look at Sam Ovens with school. Yeah. Like, yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting. What do you think AI is going to do in terms of
AI went off like like the copywriting industry, right?
Yeah.
So one day a human had to type everything. And the next day they're just like, oh yeah, a machine can do this. So it slowly crept up. There was like GPT-1, GPT-2. They were kind of jokes and just, they weren't good. Plain and simple. Then GPT-3 came around. Companies like Copy AI, Jasper started like making wrappers around those to where you can now have like, you can make subject lines that were like pretty decent. Then ChatGPT came around 1 year and 30 days ago or so. That's how recent ChatGPT was. Now there's this entity that can write a lot of stuff. So is AI going to change everything? Probably. I don't know in the absolute short term it's going to change everything, but will everyone use it? I mean, I just don't see like a world where that's not possible. So it reminds me of the internet coming up in like the year 2000, around that time frame. The internet existed for a long time, but it's for dorks and people that really knew how to use it. It was hard, it was slow, it was fast, you needed expensive equipment. Then it got cheaper, easier, faster. Now it's just like there's no distinction between online and offline.
Right.
I think the same thing will happen with AI. There's not going to be a distinction between like this is human made versus AI. I think that's going to blur pretty hard at some point. And so this is the way things are going. I don't know what the second order effects are going to be. The first order effects is that if you're working in a mid-sized company to send like an invoice and want it to write for you, it'll do that. That's like obvious, right? Mm-hmm. What the second order effects will do, like when the mobile phone came out, the iPhone came out, that was basically the definition start of the phone era. Yeah. You can actually kind of like browse the webs, and people were like, articles are going to get more popular. What they didn't expect was that Uber would come around, right? Now, like Uber doesn't have to make equipment. The driver and the person could just have their own equipment and correlate, meeting up on phones. So that kind of effect, the second order effects of that, I don't know what it's going to be. But I do wonder if all the stuff we're doing right now will look like crazy dinosaurs, just be old.
What, in like the next 5 years or so?
ChatGPT is 1 year and 30 days old.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think Bill Gates came out on CNN saying that within 18 to 24 months, there will be massive disruption with generative AI.
I think you're already seeing it. I think with the SEO world, I don't think Google was prepared for it. All of a sudden, you get like billions of pages being published and they just weren't prepared for something like that. Yeah, before, like if I hired an agency that could maybe put 5 or 10 articles out a day, just with like, outsourcing it to wherever, now I could do that on a scale that's unimaginable.
And at a much lower cost.
Yeah.
Like what would you spend to put out an article today if you were to do it with what you know and kind of like your team?
Like the old school way?
Yeah.
There's different levels. If you want to put a article, you could do for $5, right? If I want to do a good article, maybe $100, something like that. A really, really world-class piece of writing, you have to hire someone better, and that could be 1,000 plus, right? But to have AI do it is free and essentially infinite. And the thing is, it's getting better and better all the time. When people say like, well, it can't write good copy, I always ask them, what do you define as good copy? Because I argue it will be able to write that, and it can. You're just not telling it what to do correctly. And so people used to say like, well, it can't like have like human experiences, but you can tell it, give me examples of this marketing tactic being used in real life, and it reads the whole web or has already read the whole web and gives you examples in the article. How is that not good copy? It's giving you examples. It's telling you what to do. It's pretty damn good. And so actually, you're talking about SEO. One of the SEO strategies was just like, you go after a keyword, like people type in like, what is copywriting? Because they're curious what it is. They see a link, they click it, that's me. Maybe they sign up to my stuff. Now Google has a little thing, generative AI right at the top, that answers it really well. It says, what is AI? What is AI and how is it used in everyday life? And it'll make a different article for you. And honestly, I use it all the time. It's really good. You're gonna have to compete with that, and that's gonna be difficult, if not impossible.
So the only way really to do would be a personal brand incorporated into the company.
Yeah. So now, but however, if someone typed in, what is copywriting John Williams? They want to hear your answer. Ooh, now we got a good search going on.
Right.
That's called a branded search. That's still the gold standard and always was. So that kind of stuff is good when they want to hear it from your mouth. I think that's going to be the key, not just like try to hijack a word. Hopefully someone clicks an ad or like clicks a link and you get an affiliate offer. I think that will die out. Yeah, like library sites is what they used to call them in the SEO world.
I think was it Google? Google is concerned about Bing and what Bing is doing right now. Microsoft's Bing with not ChatGPT, but their own.
Yeah, because they kind of own it, OpenAI. Yeah.
What was their strategy? It was like it was like what they're doing, but multiplied.
Yeah, for a while, everyone was like, Bing's going to take over. That did not happen.
No, not at all.
Still. Google caught up. Google is a good company. I know everyone on it, blah, blah, blah. They on Facebook, Amazon, Google. Yeah. These are the best companies around. I don't know what people are talking about. You look at the output, profit, how fast they innovate. It's incredibly fast. Sure, they were a few months behind OpenAI, but they caught up real quick. And Bard is being used all the time. Maybe not people going to bard.com or whatever, but they're seeing it in the generative search. I would say Google probably serves up more generative content than OpenAI at this point.
What are your thoughts in terms of how this economy is going to move forward? Do you think we're going to see a situation where in the 1970s, $1 billion company would have 5,000 employees, hypothetically, and now $1 billion company might have 150 or 500 employees, some of them, right, or less?
Yeah.
In the future, do you think we're going to see a situation where companies doing $100 million a month with 5 employees? Or
yeah, sure. I mean, that's it. I don't see any reason that trend won't keep going. Mark Andreessen, the famous VC, always talked about software as like an army of like dumb little lemmings that you just have at your command. And you used to be able to have one because computers are expensive. Now they're cheap, now they're free, now they're smart. And so you can have technically billions of these things doing that at all times, right? We already kind of have that. Think about it. At the moment we're recording this, there's probably people watching your YouTube channel. That's not you. That's digital John Williams going out there, right? And doing your work. Or you have a website that someone's looking at right now. That's digital John Williams. Almost all your stuff is digital already. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue even further. And in fact, the next evolution of that, which seems hard to appreciate now, but will probably happen, is instead of you doing this interview, could like a virtual version of it happen. That's probably a little bit of way, but like eventually it'll probably move to something along those lines. Or John Williams will probably not have to run a company, have a staff, do any of that stuff. You're just recording podcasts all day or doing whatever you love doing, and the AI is making all the content around it. I think that's where it's eventually going.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that it's just like, it's trippy to think about it, of how fast the world will, that could be 5 years away.
That is maybe even sooner. Yeah. But 5 years is probably an accurate assessment of like when it's really good. Like you could just go to an event and have like, I don't know, like one of those like 360 VR cameras, kind of just with you vaguely. Like you don't even have to like hold it up and frame a shot. Just with you vaguely, and it will cut up everything and put it in the best format.
What do you think a lot of these tech companies will be doing if they're going to lay off, let's say, they're going to remove a lot of the employees in which they no longer need, and they start moving in and they start to have a better infrastructure with some of the general AI and everything that they're doing there. You think they're start entering a lot of small mom and pop businesses and kind of like disrupting different businesses? And because a lot of companies that are small mom and pop, they have high expenses. They're paying U.S. labor. They're paying a lot more than they could be if they had that I guess technical support. Do you think we're going to start seeing that?
I don't know. Actually, So yes, there's a case for both of them. The big companies are going to be the ones with the foundational models and stuff like that. So it's like a lot of people make money off Amazon, but Amazon's like the big 800-pound gorilla. So I think this would be like OpenAI, Google will have the foundational things, probably Amazon too. There'd be a lot of smaller companies based off of it. However, I do think that technology always benefits the small guys. Like me and you probably started with no money or $100 or something very little.
I still film my YouTube videos today with this cell phone. And a cheap little $20
so that helps.
on
so
Amazon.
the tech helps you, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of machine learning AI in that thing already.
Yeah.
And so the tech helps you. And so I actually think that'll probably empower a lot more smaller creators to come about, whereas they couldn't do it before. So before, like, for example, I remember like dental offices, you had to have like a secretary. Always pick up the phone to make your business. Now you got a Calendly app. People schedule their own crap, reschedule. It costs you $29 a month or less. And that's the whole thing. Everything's just scheduled online and you don't have to pay a person for it. That's a big help to a small person. So I think there's a case that like, yes, some of the big companies are going to get bigger. Like seeing $1 trillion+ companies is going to be more common. Also probably due to inflation, just that'll happen again. But then also there'll be a lot of small companies that'll be enabled to do this stuff. Right now, I had a friend ask me to make an e-commerce store for her. I was like, it's not that easy necessarily. Like you can use Shopify and stuff like that, and it makes it a lot easier than it was 20 years ago, of course. But I think with AI, it'll just be so easy that you start taking pictures of crap and it'll vaguely put it up online somehow, right? We're getting to that era. It takes about 6 minutes to start up a Shopify store with relatively little technical expertise, and that number is dropping. So instead of 6 minutes, it'll probably take 6 seconds at some point. So I think it empowers the small person quite a bit, but then some of the bigger companies will get very powerful. And I mean, I don't think it's like a secret. It's going to be obvious.
I think it's a huge opportunity for a lot of people right now. The next couple of years would be, especially a lot of people that are always on their devices now. They're already kind of in a place to where they're going to learn more. They're going to put themselves in a position to kind of follow the trends, and they're going to be able to integrate these small little advancements in their business over the next year or so. It's going to put them in a really, really good spot to capitalize on that.
I mean, I do think that people who are more technical are going to win, and they always have throughout much of history. Technologically, if you're more advanced than the other people, you could just do more. For example, a lot of the good creators you see on YouTube, they've got like great quality video. A lot of times they're doing it themselves. Sometimes like MKBHD, like that dude's like amazing at video, right? And so he's ahead of everyone else. I think investing in some of the technical skills, like you almost can't go wrong, in my opinion.
What are your thoughts on real estate and kind of like the overall, like people that are making a lot of money right now online? How are you investing your money?
I've lived through 2 booms where I had money, like I had my skin in the game and stuff like that. So one was 2008, where you saw like everyone, but I actually sold a home in October 2008. Right
before the crash?
By pure coincidence, no skill or anything anyways. But like you get this thing on the news that says like Bear Stearns went bankrupt, and you're like, oh, one of the biggest banks just went bankrupt and it toppled everything. And the real estate market just crashed, right? But I think what I noticed is like, it doesn't crash, it goes back down to earth. Right. There's always someone looking to buy real estate. And one of my first mentors was in real estate and had a portfolio of 100 million plus and probably much larger at this point of real estate. And he always said something I liked. He was like, there's always a deal somewhere. There's always a deal somewhere. Some market, some niche, something. Just because there's a real estate bubble crash in Las Vegas doesn't mean that the middle of Houston has that same problem.
Right.
Or also, just because San Francisco goes through a tech crash doesn't mean Houston is hurting because they're dependent on oil. It's a different industry. Or that Dubai isn't killing it. There's always something somewhere. But I do think real estate is harder than most people realize. I personally think you need to have economies of scale. So instead of buying like a single family house and just like renting it out, I think you're running on really thin margins. There's a lot of unexpected costs that come up. But if you got 4 condos in a row, okay. Now we're talking
more flexibility.
Now we're talking one maintenance guy to maintain all the things. Everything's close by. You can use the same tools for the different apartments. I think that's kind of interesting. And if you expand that portfolio, it could be good. But it seems like a very long-term game. And I think you have to be in it full time.
What are a lot of your friends that are successful? Do they have a specific investment strategy right now?
A lot of them get by real estate. especially if they like buy a company and now you just have a ton of money and you're like, real estate's where it's at. And then you're like, God damn it, I'm like a landlord now. And this involves a lot of stuff. And like someone's like, hey man, I can't pay the rent this month, but what about next month? And there's always like the water heater breaks, all that kind of stuff. And yes, you can have a management company, but I think you scrape by with minimal profits at times. I think there are people that have like owned a house in California for 30 years and like now it's way higher and they can rent it out for more. That makes sense. But the main thing I've seen people get rich on is like the boring ass stuff, putting it in the S&P 500, VOO, or one of those like index funds where it just sits there for 20 years straight and don't do anything. Basically, all of Warren Buffett's advice, I parrot. Whatever he says, I think that's true.
So you put a little bit in every month or every quarter or every year?
Dude, I got lucky. I suggest everyone go through this. Go through a day trading phase where you try to pick stocks and day trade. Put $1,000 in or whatever you can afford and do it with your real money.
Yeah.
If you do one of those stock simulators, you'd be like, $1 million here.
Yeah.
But then you put 15 of your real dollars and you'll start stressing out.
Yeah.
Right? It's very, very different. I did that in college because I had some extra income for my businesses. And I was like watching the market every morning. I was like up like at 6 a.m., like when the bell rang and all that crap. At the end of the year, I barely made any money except the long-term investment trades I made like a la Warren Buffett style. And that's like reading reports and being like, okay, is this company going to go up in the long run? Mm-hmm. I don't care about the next quarter. I don't care about the next year. I'm talking about 10 years. Is this company going to get better? And if you just read about the company and follow it, you could usually tell what's going to go up in 10 years. And I made the most money from those trades doing absolutely nothing. Just like putting in one time and then getting out when it was awesome. But it sometimes took years.
Yeah.
And so I learned that advice, and the friends that I have with money, and just because someone has money doesn't mean they're good at investing.
Right.
It's a weird thing I've learned.
Yeah.
You think they would go hand in hand.
I was a real estate agent in Beverly Hills for a decade. The doctors and the lawyers were like the worst investors I've
Dude,
ever
they
met.
hear stock tips.
You're just like, oh, I heard the Uber's going to go up 10%.
And they'll put money in Uber. And you're just like, what is this? I did this in college, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I got that experience out of my system early.
Yeah.
It almost always fails. And it's just like, if their investment thesis is like, because they heard a cab driver say it,
Yeah.
that's not real. That's not real. So that's something I realized. Like people who are rich aren't necessarily good at investing all the time, and they do a lot of stupid things still. But they made the most money in the steady long-term investments, and the most money comes from the selling of a business.
Yeah.
Every time.
Do you believe in selling a company, or would you rather hold on to the business for long term?
Depends what you want to do, but I think there's always a price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even someone who's like, I want to hold on to it for a long period of time, there's going to be a price that they'd be like, I'm willing to sell this.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, you're mentioning the embedding short form clips into a personal brand website, like for example, on copywriting, right?
Yeah.
If you have a bunch of your clips, you're like, oh, I want to sell this copywriting company, but now it's like a personal brand. Well, how would you kind of segue that away to where it's no longer a personal brand? So the buyer's not taking that risk to where you now have to do like an earn out for 5 years and try to.
Yeah. Classic conundrum. If it's under your name or you're a big part of it, it's going to be harder to sell.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can't sell it for quite as much. But I think what a lot of people do is you mentioned School, Sam Ovens.
Yeah.
Well, there's Sam Ovens, but then there's School. Mm-hmm. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the main promoter guy, but once he gets to a certain level, a certain MRR, they'll
Correct.
buy it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think what people do, and I think the strategy moving forward is, and this has kind of emerged in the last 5 years. Now it's obvious. You have your own personal brand and then like some other thing that you promote. Mm-hmm. Right. So for you, it's probably like your credit repair stuff.
Yeah.
So that's not directly associated with you all the time. You're probably the main
I'm not
promoter.
on the website at all, but yeah, I'm the main promoter.
There you go. So if someone wanted to buy that, you could. So I think that the main, and then if you sell that, you still have like a brand and audience to do something else with. So it used to be like if you have a company, you just only tweet, you only do content under that,
Yeah.
and then you sell it. Now I think people pay more attention to the personal brands. Brian Chesky gets more engagement than the Airbnb account, right? That's the same with every CEO. The person gets more engagement than the company. I don't want to follow the company.
Yeah.
You should try to follow the person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be the case moving forward. So have your own personal brand. I think you should always start that. I wish I just did that before. Just have that, grow that, and then like you pimp your projects on the side.
Yeah.
If you want to sell them, that's fine.
Yeah, so Graham Stephan had an offer to buy, I think, 10% of his YouTube channel, and they were offering him $2 million to buy 10%. But he had to post like he was talking about it publicly. He had to post a certain amount of times every week, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So it's very interesting how I think now VC firms they're understanding the value of these brands and what they can offer in terms of equity that can be built through other companies that are connected.
Yeah, it's interesting. I started one of the first personal finance blogs on the web, and what that meant back in the day was like you posted how much money you made. Now it's like everyone talks about that in their Twitter profile. This used to be very taboo just 20 years ago. It's kind of wild to see that shift. And I would talk about how much money I made. It was in college, so the numbers weren't like gigantic or anything. But Bankrate.com started buying all these personal finance blogs for like $1 million, $2 million. Back then, that was like pretty crazy. They were buying a blog. Blogs were kind of a joke. And And I was always like, what the hell did they buy that for? And I just didn't know because I didn't have a house or anything at the time.
Yeah.
But all the blogs they bought were talking about like mortgages. So, okay, what's the average thing when you get like some sort of mortgage project? It's a big number, right?
Yeah.
So if they could sell like 7 extra mortgages, they could probably make their money back.
Yeah.
And so they're buying all these blogs just because they have like the audiences that are looking for this stuff, looking to refinance, all those things. I was like, oh, so I saw through the curtain of like what they were really looking for. And so I think with the brand, like, why did HubSpot buy The Hustle? It's like, well, The Hustle has all the readers that HubSpot wants to buy.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, well, how do I get all those people? I could start my own thing or just buy this person out and just get them all right away. And so it's like looking at the thing that they want, like underlying your brand is important. So like, who's your audience? Like credit repair is like an enviable audience, I think, because it seems like a lucrative industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's 205 million Americans over the age of 18, 105 million have bad credit.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty substantial figure. And right now in the economy, with what's kind of credit's tightening and borrowing costs are rising. And so the better your credit, the more opportunity you're going to have to secure a better rate.
Yeah.
So a lot of people right now are trying to figure out how they're going to put themselves in a better position to get funding.
Yeah, so that means there's a lot of money in that industry. There's a lot of eyeballs on it. There's a lot of people interested in it. And so like that could be a great acquisition target.
Yeah.
You're
So-
close to the money.
Bankrate.com, you mentioned it's sheer genius what they and Credit Karma are doing. A lot of people think Credit Karma is this app that's there to conveniently supply your credit score. And so every day people call in, or the book calls, and Jordan will talk with them like, oh no, on Credit Karma it says I'm 705. But really what Credit Karma does is they gather a lot of data. They don't give you the specific or exact score, but what they do is they say the odds of approval on this credit card, odds of approval on this loan, odds of approval on this. And when you click that link and you subscribe to try to get that card, they'll get an affiliate. So that affiliate commission might be $150, $200, $300, but their base cost is almost zero because they have 300 million users on Credit Karma.
Damn.
So like every day people are just like checking their credit score, and it's like, oh shit, I'm running out of credit on this Amex. They need to get another line of credit. Oh, and boom. And like I even signed up with an American Express card, and then I looked at the points. I'm like, oh damn, I only got, I think it was like 40,000 points on the website. It was like 100,000. I'm like, oh, I lost 60,000 points on signing up. I'm like, but good for them.
I use Credit Karma. It's dope.
Yeah.
It used to cost money to get your credit score, and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, here's all 3 of them for free.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah.
And then also, if they show you some offers, it's as a copywriter, I'm like, it's genius because like they're not trying to sell you like, hey, buy this. They're
Yeah.
just like, by the way,
If you want it,
you want
can have
40,000 points on your dumbass offer, or you want 100,000 points by clicking this link?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to click the link.
Yeah.
So they help me out.
Yeah.
It's great. I think they're doing a cool job at it.
Same thing with Bankrate and a lot of these other affiliate websites. I think is probably one of the smartest creators is Dave Ramsey. And he's been running that for such a long time. He has like a really, really clean image, talks finance, people trust him. And I think he's made like 300 million bucks on he owns 300 million bucks in real estate with no loans.
Huh.
And
He's also good.
yeah.
I think a lot of these people, you look at them, you're just like, yeah, they're good. Like, I don't think I listen to Joe Rogan as much since he went to Spotify, but I still listen to him every once in a while when like The Rock or something's on. I'm just like, oh yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey is good.
Yeah.
He's got like a style. He's got a strong opinion. He's got all the good elements of a creator.
Yeah.
So
And he just has like a good vibe. Like you hear him talk, you're like, oh, okay, like he seems like an actually good person.
he's also, his format, I think a lot of people are going to copy too.
For sure. I've sent like some
Dude,
of the
it's
stuff
so
to my
good.
team. I'm like, how do we do this?
I think right now everyone's doing this type of format, like the sit down interview. But I think everyone kind of knows that, like, unless you're Joe Rogan or some famous comedian that people are coming for, most people don't want to sit through an hour and a half, 2-hour interview.
Yeah.
But if there's like a call-in show and you're taking all these different questions that can turn into clips, I was just like, he might have been way ahead of the game on that one.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like on TikTok, on IG, you can't get away from the guy.
Yeah.
Like all of his clips, and he's super entertaining. He just sits back and he's just always like,
Well, because it's a nice little story all in like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Here's my story. I f***ed up my credit, blah, blah, blah. Here's how to do it. Here's the answer. And you get that in 1 minute and you're like, yeah, I learned something.
Yeah.
That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have bad credit, but if I saw that story and like how someone did it, I'm just like, that's a interesting piece of knowledge.
and what he was talking, he said years ago that his company, 85% of his revenue came from his personal brand, like his actual face. Now, since he
Damn.
brought on co-host, only 15% of the revenue comes from him. Everything else comes from his subsidiary companies, whether it be through education and what he's doing with his course business and everything.
Wait, so the new people don't bring in as much?
No, the new people, like his new infrastructure that he's built out over the last decade or so, has brought down. Before, he was 85% responsible for all the revenue coming from every single sale. Now he said it's 15%.
So that's a great way. He's kind of like just
slowly moving out and kind of
Yeah.
like building out these new personalities under him. So he doesn't have to be on the call-in show every single day, hustling, trying to, dance out there, trying to.
Maybe he did it.
That's what I'm saying.
He's the model for it.
Yeah. In the finance space, I think there's going to be some creators that are going to definitely jump on that. I'm definitely looking seriously at doing the call-in show. Would you think about doing something like that?
I think I would. So the only problem is my thing is copywriting. Visualizing that is very difficult. And it's like whenever someone has like an email, it's like this long email, and it's like, it's very small. You probably can't even read it if it's on your phone.
Yeah.
And then you're slowly just being like, okay, I would go, what is it's boring as shit.
Yeah.
I wish it was like a design show or something like that. We're just like redoing designs. That would be cool. But I think for you, it's like, my credit. Here's my situation. How do I repair it? You have an answer. That's like prime candidate for a call-in show. So I actually do these office hours every Thursday, which is essentially what we're talking about. It's like a call-in show, except obviously hosted over Zoom. And we share screens. Someone says, here's my page. How do I improve it? And I go through beforehand and like kind of prepare a little bit. So I'm like, you got to put social proof in like that. You got to do this. You got to change around this headline, get rid of all this crap over here. And it's kind of like a quick before and after like that. Something like that could be a call-in show, but it had to be over screen sharing, basically.
Interesting.
Dave Ramsey can do it just with audio.
Yeah.
I don't think mine would just be audio. Just like describing a web page is not interesting, but just showing it is good.
How did you initially get into copywriting?
I actually had other businesses. I started in e-commerce, and I had a news. Everyone was like, you got to send a newsletter out. The money is in your email list is your ATM machine.
Yeah.
And I was sending an email newsletter out. I was making no money, negative money. Like no one bought anything. And I was making custom images. I had big buy now buttons, call to actions, everything. And I was like, I guess this is just how it is. And then one of my buddies was like, you need to study copywriting. I read the Gary Halbert letters, which are free online. And I was like, holy I've been doing this all wrong. I have to like describe a product, why someone should buy it, different use cases for it, how other people have used it. And I knew all that. So my first ever thing I did was about these like little finger lights. So I ran a rave company, never been to a rave in my life, besides Burning Man once.
Yeah.
And it's like these little lights you put on your finger and like dance around like this on drugs.
Yeah.
That's what I thought people were using them for. However, since I was the phone support person as well as the owner of the company, I would get these calls and people would be like, yeah, I'm buying a bunch of these. And I'd be like, why are you buying so many? And they're like, we run a plumbing company. And plumbers put these on their hands because they can't always get their headlight under the sink, right? You go into the sink and you use it. And they're so cheap, they're like disposable, they get ruined. You just have 50 of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, I never would have thought a plumbing company is buying a bunch of these. That's interesting. MTV bought a bunch for like a show to put like into laser guns, like some space show or whatever.
Yeah.
They put it into laser guns. People were using them for Halloween. People were using them. One of their kids was autistic and the kid like somehow was like calmed down by these lights. Another parent was like, he gives them to his kids to check for monsters under the bed. Couldn't make all this stuff up myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, whenever I wrote that email, I was like, let's put all that crap in there. I sold more than I ever did on like any day ever in my life.
But how do you sell to everybody?
Well, you put all those different use cases in. So I thought it was just 16-year-olds dancing around with these things. In reality, it was like parents who had money, by the way, better audience than 16-year-olds, who were buying them for Halloween. They were buying them for their kids to play around with as a cheap little flashlight for camping.
Do you
kind of
post
stuff.
like images of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I took all the images myself and everything. I sold more than I ever did in that one day with that email. And I was like, oh, that was my first properly copywritten email, right? Like the different use cases, some social proof for it, and they're just talking about one product the whole time. I also didn't have any images in that whole thing. It was all text. And I was like, holy crap. And overnight, my company became more dependent on email for revenue rather than SEO.
How did you build out the list?
The list was just previous customers. That's it.
Oh, and I mean,
no list
of your
at all.
initial previous customers. How'd you get those?
SEO.
Oh,
all SEO. People searching for stuff. Yeah. And I would do little tricks like, for example, there's a thing called light up golf balls. I call them rave balls. And like if you typed in rave balls, that wasn't a product. Only I had them. So if you typed in rave balls, I was the only game in town.
Yeah.
Type in light up golf balls, everyone had them.
Yeah.
So I do little things like that. And I was really good at SEO. That was like my thing that I was better at than everyone else. So I would outrank my supplier because it was just all drop shipping. I would outrank my supplier. Like spots 1, 2, and 3 were all me.
Interesting.
Yeah, all me. All the images, the text links, and the videos.
How long did it take you to go from that stage, from the beginning to where you can really start?
SEO used to be a little bit easier, and so you could rank within weeks, if not less. if you knew what you were doing and getting links and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you used to be able to go in forums and participate, link a couple things here and Google, hey, that's a link. So it was a little bit easier back then. But I got that business going in like a month or something. And I was in high school and it was much, much harder.
Yeah.
Just getting approved for a merchant account back then was hard. Now that's like a non-issue. It's not like a thing anymore. So that part was hard. Oh, I had to get a server. Like you have a server with your name on it somewhere in a mountain in Arizona.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing. Now that's like, you do not need a server.
Right.
Yeah, you get hosting easy. You just start with Shopify. They handle all this kind of stuff. So it took like about a month to do that.
What do you think is a really good opportunity for people that are, trying to make money online, that are trying to break through? Maybe they're in a career right now, they're thinking maybe they'll get let go, or maybe they're saying the cost of the world is getting a little bit more expensive and they're...
Dude, I'm a huge fan of freelancing. And like, I think everyone's like the niches or the riches or the niches.
Yeah.
They're somewhat true of that. I say freelance based on whatever your technical skills are right now. I can't tell you how many people have come to me saying like, I want to be a copywriter. I'm like, what do you do now? And they're like, well, I'm an accountant. I'm like, can you do freelancing in that industry first? Because you're just going to get more money that way.
Yeah.
Instead of like learning a whole new skill you have no basis in. And so freelancing, I think, is bigger than people realize. I think if you go on Upwork, put yourself on there for 30 minutes to an hour a day and apply to jobs and do this consistently for a year, you can make it a full-time income. I did an Upwork experiment trying that. The key is you have to be on there every day. 30 minutes to an hour applying to different gigs. And the gigs are at first going to be small, then you build up a reputation, you get larger. You're essentially starting your own company. It's a freelance business. You are starting a business. You are the product. But I do think freelancing is probably the best way to get immediate income right away. And then what happens is you'll start noticing, oh, it's all like dental offices that are employing me for whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, so now I can start like a small little agency or small service like based off of just dental offices.
Yeah.
So I know a guy who does ads only for chiropractors, right? He runs Facebook ads only for chiropractors. A billion other places run Facebook ads, but he only does them for chiropractors. So chiropractors are like, well, he's specialized in this. That's better.
Do you make a lot of money?
Yeah, he makes good money. But it takes a while to build that reputation. Then you become like the guy for that. And then you could say like, I'm only taking a few people in each city, then people apply, that kind of thing. But I do think freelancing is probably one of the best ways to make money online. And it's like a serendipity engine. You never know what comes out of it. So I hired the top Fiverr copywriter. And I was like, I don't want anything from you. I just want to ask you about your income. And he said he made like $300,000 to $400,000 a year, but most of the gigs were crap. And maybe about 3 of them paid the rest, account for 90% of his income. Huh. He's like 3 of them were really good clients that I just work with really well. And that's where most of the income comes. And the rest are kind of like meh, but used for lead gen. And so I do think there is like this value in freelancing if you don't know what you're going to do to get money instantly without spending a lot of money to make that money. That's the way I would personally do it.
Yeah, because a lot of people think, you have to start a business and you have to, invest all this money and take all this risk. But if you're doing freelancing, you're basically getting paid to learn.
Yeah, and you start off like being like, hey, can I do work for you? You start begging, and then you start getting to this point where you're like, well, I got enough balls in the air. I'm not making a ton of money yet, but I can start turning away clients. And then at that point, you start raising your rates, that kind of thing. I think it's a nice way, like if you have a job to do on the side. Is what I think. I don't think most people should jump full-time into it because I think if you can't do it on the side, you can't do it full-time. I rarely have seen people just totally quit and jump into something and then like kill it. I usually see people that like do it on the side. It's like Facebook started, he was at Harvard and then Facebook took off. It's not like he just quit to start Facebook and had no traction. He quit when it had tons of traction. So I think I've seen that same story play out where you get traction on the side and then quit your full-time job.
So that's initially a lot of kind of the work that you got?
Originally, yeah, I did SEO work, building web pages for people. That's where originally the money started coming in. That's also where I learned about pricing. I was charging this one company $500 for an SEO project. And I was like, I could do this in a weekend. This is easy. And my mentor at the time was like, you don't dare say $500. You say $5,000. At the time, I could not fathom that type of money. And I was like, dude, but it'll take me like a few hours. He's like, tell them 5,000 minimum. And I said 5,000 and they immediately accepted. And I was like, oh, damn, I may have undercharged for this.
Yeah.
And so that I learned all these lessons with freelancing of like dealing with customers or like trusting your gut. Like if someone's going to be a pain in the ass, you're almost always right.
Yeah.
Your judgment is almost always correct. And so I learned that kind of lesson. And I think that really helped me in business later on, the freelancing aspect, because you are running a freelance business. So I think as general advice, what's a good opportunity? I don't know. That just depends on someone. If someone's like a high-end programmer that used to work for Google, your opportunity is going to look very different than some kid that has no education.
Is that how you kind of got integrated with the hustle and AppSumo?
Totally. It started as freelance. I actually started my own business first, and I'd done some freelancing before that. And then other people were asking like, hey, how do you do this writing thing? Or could you write for me? I was like, yeah, I mean, for money. So like AppSumo kind of started like that. It was a side project of my buddy Noah Kagan's. And I was like, dude, your emails suck. Let me take a crack at this. We send that out and it made the first $10,000 profit day. And we're like, well, that was cool.
Yeah.
We did it really good. And so we did it again and again and again. And so that's how that came. It's a serendipity like that. And that never would have happened if I wasn't doing just random things online.
I mean, that's extremely valuable to be able to build all these different relationships with all these different people that are generally people that are doing well, have other friends that are doing well.
What are you seeing as like cool opportunities for people like that?
I think boring businesses are going to be a lot more valuable than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people are trying to go after shiny object syndrome, and a lot of those things fizzle out and they don't actually result in money.
Yeah.
So like actually picking a business, like for example, credit repair, or a lot of businesses that seem kind of like boring, I think have a lot of opportunity, and I think have a lot less competition because everyone else is distracted by everybody else.
It's like insurance agents. There's all these insurance agencies killing it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I never hear about this. It's like, yeah, because it's boring.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah, I think
Not fun for most people.
A lot of trades, I think, are going to do really well. Like a lot of local plumbing and electrical companies, I think, are going to do really, really well going forward.
Yeah, I think there's going to be like a bit of a, I think there's ebbs and flows of every industry.
Yeah.
And generally when housing is doing well, trades do really well.
Correct.
Right? And then it's not like trades go away. It's not like there's never any building going on. It's just that there's going to be less. So I think a lot of people that got into the trade industry or became handymen in the last like 3-4 years, especially like after we're like, this shit's easy.
Yeah.
But then what they realize later is just like, okay, well, that cycle will end at some point, and then people start pinching pennies a little bit more.
Well, a lot of people got into the trades in like the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. But the last couple of years, trades have been really pulling back. A lot of people don't go to trade school like they used to. And so what's likely going to happen is a lot of these people are going to retire out of the trades, and there's going to be less people in the trades. And
but it's always grass is greener kind of thing. Like a lot of the people in the trades, like, I mean, I've hired plumbers and stuff. I hired some guys to build a deck for me. They're out in summer, like for 12 hours.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not.
I was like, I don't even know where they go to
there.
the bathroom or anything.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on. It's a tough thing, and to them, they're probably like, I would love to sit inside my
for
house and type on a laptop.
Yeah.
Right. So whereas other people are like, yeah, start doing trades. It's like there's a trade off to that. Like being a plumber ain't like the easiest life.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the one outside doing it. I wouldn't be the one, plumbing somebody's toilet. Yeah. But like actually maybe owning the business or kind of be the middleman.
I think that there's also, but then you also start dealing with like tradesmen of varying qualities. Like you start dealing with like dudes that are like perhaps maybe recent criminals, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
You just have a whole other set of problems. I think some people think like, oh, I'm just going to buy a plumbing company and it'll go all smoothly. It's just like, well, you have to have insurance, or like what if some guy blows up a pipe and like ruins someone's house? Now you eventually have to deal with that kind of stuff. So there is just another set of problems to deal with. I think it seems almost too rosy sometimes on the internet. And like I said, I had friends that have made a lot of money, bought real estate, and now they're all like, I don't want to do real estate. And because they realize like it's just almost easier to like put your money in S&P 500 index.
Austin?
Or all around the world.
Austin's real estate market, I hear all these different things. I don't know what to believe.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy in a good way or crazy in kind of like it's softening quickly?
Coming back down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I've lived in Austin for 20 years. The story has always been there's 150 people a day moving here. Then it's 200 people. The number keeps increasing by 50 every time.
Yeah.
During the untold numbers.
Yeah.
Like it was like that part was ridiculous. Yeah, you see like a 100% increase in a home's price in like a year or two. Yes. And what's going to happen is that number's never going to like crater way below everything, but it's going to start to come back down to earth, and prices are going to stabilize. I don't think like crashing is probably the wrong word because there's so much demand.
Yeah.
But are real estate agents having to work more? Yes.
Yeah.
Are you actually having to do marketing? Are you have to fight over similar clients and stuff? Yes. Whereas before they're just like people are putting in offers. And that's, I mean, you know enough about the economy. That's a function of just the cheap money that was out there.
Yeah.
I bought a house during that time too. I was like, I can't miss this deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3% mortgage. You're like, that's free money.
Below. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, well, okay, inflation's this high, this rate's this big. You're just like, this is a topsy-turvy world. It shouldn't happen like this.
Yeah.
But right now it is. I don't know how long that's going to take. So of course, everyone bought a home at that time. So was it easier to sell a house back then? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it harder to sell a house now? Yes.
Yeah, I sold my house in LA in 2021 and moved to Florida. And I always look at Austin. I'm always like, it's such a cool little pocket. I don't know enough about it. I haven't like walked the street, but it just seems like such a cool little pocket. A lot of money, a lot of jobs, a lot is just flowing there.
It is cool. I think when people like move from LA or something like that, they're like, yeah, it's just like a mini LA. I'm like, but it's different.
Yeah.
Like, it is different.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same thing. One, natural beauty. You come from California, you're getting some of the most beautiful landscapes on the planet. You're just not going to get that. The other thing is you go to like Tahoe or blah, blah, blah real quick. Over here, you drive 2 hours out. You're not that far.
Yeah.
You're still kind of in the same landscape and everything. There are some like pockets like that, but it is a bit different. But yeah, I think a lot of people want to move here. It's just kind of like the secondary hub where a lot of stuff is happening.
The rental market is absolutely crazy because there's 230,000 apartments in Austin and 120,000 are under construction right now. So you think about that, 50% of the inventory of the rental market is about to hit the market.
You was the other thing. Okay, I'm 41 years old. A lot of people on TikTok that talk about real estate are like 27.
Yeah.
They have never been through a downturn in their entire life. And not knocking them. It hasn't been in their experience. Maybe they were alive during it, but didn't have skin in the game. And so like when you remember like 2008, like I had graduated college a little before that. A lot of my friends went to law school and stuff, getting some fat ass offers at New York City law firms.
Yeah.
Bear Stearns collapses. The next day they get a call. Yeah, don't show up. And they're like, well, what about my contract? They're like, go yourself.
Yeah.
We can't help you.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that has happened in the past and will happen again. It's taken a really long time for it to happen. There's probably going to be some big bust at some point that happens, like the Black Swan event that happens.
Yeah.
You don't know when, you don't know how, but it likely will repeat itself at some point in
So
some weird way.
I had a commercial weight equipment business when I was in high school, and we were buying weight equipment from a distributor that was selling to LA Fitness and all these different companies. And I would say, hey, if I could sell some of this equipment, would you sell it to me at wholesale? And he'd basically doing me a favor, right? And I'd take pictures and I'd upload it on Craigslist. And I had borrowed my dad's work truck. He owned a little TNT. It was like TNT Electronics. It was a little TV repair shop. And I borrowed the work truck and I'd take my friends and we would go drop off like in Delaware, New Jersey, and different places, right? I saved up a little bit of money. I'm like, I want to move to California right after I graduate high school. And like 2 months later, I drove my Hyundai Elantra out to Long Beach, and I'm like, awesome, like partying, skateboarding. I grew up skating, so I was like, that's where you wanted to be, to skateboard, right? Ran through all my money, and then I was like, okay, I need to make money. I need to make it fast, and I became a real estate agent right as the market crashed in 2008. And I came across this one investor, old guy, talked real slow, just all the time in the world. And he was picking up these condos in Long Beach in downtown for like $100,000, $110,000. And he was just, the market was going crazy a year, 2 years before. He didn't care. He didn't give a shit. Just sitting on money. And then when I crashed, he's like, all right, he just like buying them like hotcakes, buying up all these places, $100,000.
And it's because he's just been around more.
Yeah.
He's just older.
He understands
Charlie
cycles.
Munger, or now deceased, but Warren Buffett, they're just old as
Yeah.
And they've seen like 7 bubbles go up and down. And you're just like, I've seen this game show before. And so they know kind of what's coming. My first mentor was a real estate guy in Houston. And like people in our community kind of knew him. And some people would be like, oh, he's just always lucky. Because he would always like buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
And then he brought me into like work with him and just take me around. He was kind of like a mentor. He even paid me and stuff like that. And he would just look at like 100 deals a day. Like I would print them out for him. Like that's how old school he was. I'd print them out. He'd go, And most days nothing would come out of it. Then every once in a while he'd be like, whoa, what's this? What's going on? You know what we do? We get in the car and go drive there. And it would be like a kind of like a lame area. Just not a lot happening. But then you see like $1 million house being built, which like in Houston is like a big deal. Like a big house, and you see another big house kind of over there around other crappier stuff. And you're like, oh, like this really fancy shopping mall is just like half a mile down the road. And you start thinking, maybe something's happening here. And so he starts looking at the price and goes, that's cheap. I bet if we like make that building a little bit nicer for $200,000, we could start renting it out for a little bit higher rate.
Yeah.
He would do that over and over and over. And he would always sell his assets when people paid crazy prices. And also with commercial real estate, it might be like a 9-month transaction closing period, for due diligence and all that.
Yeah.
So people would always be like, dude, during a hype period of time, I remember people in our community being like, you should never sell that. Real estate's going to go up forever. He's like, people pay me crazy price. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And then the investor group that bought it would go out of business.
Yeah.
He would buy that same crap back for like 25% of what they sold it for.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, he's not lucky. He's just he's just noticing that like there are these ebbs and flows of all this stuff. And a lot of the people you listen to on the internet that are 27 years old just haven't been through one in their lifetime.
Yeah.
The last downturn was 2008. That is a long time ago. It's 15 years ago or so. Yeah.
Approaching 15 years now. And
Yeah.
every single person, he's like, oh yeah, I have 20 million in debt, but I make 50 grand a month. It's like, okay, but you're going to have to refinance that debt most likely in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And if rates don't come down, you're smoked.
And the other one I remember, I was still pretty young, but I did have a business. So I had skin in the game. That's
Yeah.
important to have skin in the game. If you're a child, you don't understand it. But it was 2001, was September 11th. And I remember the economy was already like crashed.
Yeah.
Like the economy was crashing. There was a big tech bubble. Everyone's like, haha, pets.com, idiots, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And then 9/11 happened. No one saw that coming. That was just a really random thing. And all of a sudden, no one's minds was like on, hey, should I close this B2B contract? It was like, are we being attacked? This whole other thing started happening. And like businesses just they started toppling left and right at that point. And no one saw that. They thought the economy had already crashed.
Yeah.
It crashed way more.
Didn't Amazon stock drop like 90%?
Everything did.
Yeah.
Everything did. Everyone was afraid. No one knew what was happening. Like all that, like you forget about all
Yeah.
that stuff now. Or even with like or something just a few years ago, where everyone's like, what's going to happen with the world? It's
Yeah.
the new normal. We're back to normal now.
Yeah.
Like nothing's happening. Like it just went away. So you forget about all that. But like I've been through those periods of times when like things are uncertain and it's just like, yeah, this is going to happen again.
Yeah.
And when things are uncertain, people are not going to be buying houses and stuff necessarily. When the rates are high, they don't buy houses. It's just like this cycle you see. So it's like, is it going to crash? I'm like, probably at some point in some places, but like good real estate will retain some value like for a long time.
Yeah. Some of my best friends that are in real estate, even as they were buying the last couple of years, they've just been very calm about everything.
Yeah.
Even during like periods where everyone's like peak fear. Like I was talking to my friend, he's like, oh yeah, I just bought this deal. And he's like, I bought it for 9, but I think if we can do this, we could be able to sell it for 35, like huge numbers. But he's just like a completely different headspace, different level of calm than like a lot of other people that kind of get swinging.
I think there was a news article I saw that like Airbnb was in trouble. It was like an Airbnb bubble because all these people bought Airbnbs. I'm like, okay, if you bought a crappy Airbnb in a crappy location, yes, you cannot charge a lot of money for it. But there are a lot of Airbnbs that have a pool and 7 bedrooms and a golf course in the back, a little putting course, and they're like decked out. Those are killing it.
Yeah.
So you're just like, well,
Depends on what you bought.
yeah, it just depends. Like I don't know if that story is 100% true.
Well, there's only 600 and something thousand Airbnbs in America, which really is not that many. Like a lot of people think that everybody and their mom owns an Airbnb. 600,000 Airbnbs is like, I mean, it's a lot, but it's like the population of Maine, right? Or some are in that scope. It's not, for example, 60% of all single family homes in America are owned by people over 50. Right, like that's a much bigger pool of people that might be forced to make a decision on selling a property or being in financial distress if inflation doesn't get better. That there's probably more people that are going to be selling than say Airbnb. Maybe you have 20% of people or 10% of people or some 50% hypothetically of that 600,000 that maybe they bought a bad Airbnb, maybe they overpaid. That might make a decision.
Maybe the rules change.
Exactly.
Like Dallas banned Airbnbs.
New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you might see a situation like that, but I don't think it's going to be this big. I actually think that Airbnb is going to do extremely well in a recession. And the reason for that is many people that own a single family home, maybe they get laid off, they're going to start renting out rooms, and they might be doing it on Airbnb.
Dude, I posted this to Brian Chesky a little while ago. So I live next door to an Airbnb. It is professionally managed. I don't love living next door to an Airbnb, but fortunately they manage it so well. And I actually have like a direct text line and call line with them. They'll be like, hey, people are acting up or whatever, that they kind of really pre-screen. And it's $1,800 to $2,400 a night. So it's on the higher end, right? And it's usually families, bachelorette parties, which never cause any problems. Bachelor parties, no one likes a big group of men.
Yeah.
Bachelor parties are just like universally, no one really wants as much. So those are the only ones that would cause problems. I would text them about it. Now they have no bachelorette parties. But I always thought, I was just like, this is a negative externality to me, right? So anytime like an Uber driver shows up at my house at 3 a.m. delivering to the wrong address, that's my problem, not theirs. Someone parks in my driveway by accident or something like that. It doesn't happen that often, but that's my problem, not theirs. They get all the benefit. I was like, if they gave me like $200 a month, I'd be like, welcome over, guys.
Yeah.
I'd come give them ice cream or something every time someone came over. I'd be so happy. I think there are going to be things like that change structurally to where neighbors would want Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Or if you put a couple of dope Airbnbs in a neighborhood, all the taxes and hotel taxes that they pay go towards like funding a park or something like that. I think there's actually ways and structures that this could actually benefit neighborhoods rather than subtract from it.
I fully agree.
Because there's no structure right now. They're just incentivized to like keep all the money for themselves and just keep running the shit until they get in trouble. But I think if they were like actually to integrate with these neighborhoods, it could be a whole different game, and people would want them to be full.
Yeah, I mean, like Santa Monica is cracking down on it. If California was run, Los Angeles in particular, run a little bit better, I think the city as a whole would run. I think the people would be in a different place. I think that everything would be more profitable, more businesses would come, and there'd be a lot more prosperity. But because of the way in which they've done not just Airbnb, but a lot of taxes, a lot of policies, a lot of restrictions, it's taken away from what it could be, that city.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that there are hotel taxes and stuff, some of them might be a ripoff, but it's just like there are these new people coming in. They're using trash cans. They're using the roads. Like someone's got to pay for this.
Yeah.
Why not the tourists themselves? And so when you do it in Airbnb and you kind of skirt the law and don't have to pay those taxes, I see why people get pissed off. They're like, hey, there's like 400 new people coming a day into our neighborhood using everything, and they're paying nothing. That's not right.
Yeah.
So I think actually if there was a structure like that, I think something like Airbnb could actually become even bigger by playing nicely with neighbors. Right now, it's almost like an annoyance.
Yeah.
And if you have a bad Airbnb next to you, that must suck. I fortunately have like a professionally managed one, so it's not that big of a deal. But if it wasn't, I mean, I've heard some horror stories.
Is it rented out all the time, the one next to you?
70% of the time, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, has it been?
Because I live really close to 6th Street, like our main entertainment area here.
Yeah.
So there's always like parties, a lot of dudes playing golf. Almost every guest, I swear to God, every guest there drives an Escalade. I don't know why. I don't know if like Escalades are like the de facto rental car or something.
Yeah.
There's an Escalade, like a different Escalade parked in the driveway every week.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Has it been 70% probably the last couple of years? Or
Yeah,
is it
ever
like,
since I moved in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at least probably 70% occupied. Yeah, a lot of families with like kids and stuff renting it. There's a pool at it. It's like set up as an Airbnb. So, and it is, by the way, it is totally illegal. It is not zoned for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
You have to have a specific zoning in Austin to have the Airbnb?
Yeah, it's just everyone. The fines are so low and so infrequent that they're just like $500. Who gives
Yeah. Tate said fines are just for the poor people. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's going for $1,800 a night minimum. They're making. I calculated roughly 30,000 revenue per month or something off of it.
Yeah.
More during like certain times, like F1, South by Southwest. But it's just cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Now, if they crack down more, I don't know. That could change. Yeah.
What do you think that house would rent for long term?
Like it was just like a renter in there.
Yeah, just like a 1-year lease.
That house would probably, because it's a pretty nice house, probably $6,000 to $7,000 minimum, I'd say.
A month?
I think so.
Wow, so
Yeah.
they're absolutely murdering it on Airbnb. It's like 2
Yeah,
days
why would
worth,
they?
2 days income
Yeah.
for the month.
It's actually owned by a company. It's owned by a company, the house. Like it's under the LLC of like the thing that rents it. And they have a website where you can go and rent houses all across Austin and other cities. Yeah, if the law changed, that company would be
Yeah.
yeah. Or they would have to pay massive fines and just kind of eat it, and they might be able to afford it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where can people find more about you?
Copywritingcourse.com, Twitter /NevMed, or Instagram, Neville Medora. Just type in Neville Medora. There's not that many of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one guy in India who's a CEO or something like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, all the social profiles are me.
Yeah. I think what you've done is absolutely incredible. I think a lot of people could learn a lot from you.
Oh, thanks,
And
man.
I think what you're doing in the solopreneur space is going to grow dramatically over the next couple of years.
Sweet. I think, yeah, follow my personal stuff. I also have a site called swipefile.com. Swipefile is a marketing term for like collecting all the marketing that you like. And so I just put that out there for free. That's just an ad-supported site. But yeah, copywritingcourse.com is the main way to sign up for the newsletter there.
Cool. I'm going to leave all the links in the description, and see you in the next one.
Thanks, man.